Hey family, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll take a deep dive into unique challenges and triumphs of Black women navigating cultural differences in the workforce. We'll explore strategies for building inclusive work environments where everyone feels valued and respected. And also we'll be discussing the importance of intercultural communication, the impact of being more equitable and inclusive in the workplace. So join us as we unpack these critical issues with Dr. Daniels today. And I want you to hang out so you can get your blessing. All right. Hi, and welcome back to Voices Empowered, a podcast designed to empower, educate, and equip Black women. This platform is being used to amplify the voices of Black women in the workforce with the emphasis on giving the next generation tools and resources to thrive. And I'm so excited that you're joining me for another empowering message because today we have on the show with us one of our experts in the workforce, and that is Dr. Carmela Daniels. Dr. Carmela has she's a licensed clinical social worker. She's the CEO of Dr. Carmela Daniels Mentoring and Counseling LLC. And she also is a dedicated advocate for marginalized communities. So with her extensive experience in higher education, mentoring, and counseling, Dr. Daniels brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to this conversation today. She is also recognized as a leader in her field. She's passionate about fostering inclusive leadership and supporting individuals on their journey to personal and professional success. So think of me as your Chief Encouragement Officer, getting you ready to be inspired and empowered as we delve into the topic, navigating cultural differences in the workforce with Dr. Daniels. Dr. Daniels, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be here.
And we're excited about you sharing your expertise again and your insights with us. And so let's just jump right on in. I really want to take a deep dive into how do you, as a Black woman, navigate cultural differences in your workforce or your workplace, and how have you done that in the past? Maybe we'll just jump in and just start the conversation like that first.
So when we're looking at the workforce, again, to your audience, and thank you for letting me be here in this space with you. I think that what we understand and what we know as a collective of women of color, we need to make sure that we are connected holistically. And so when you're looking at navigating cultural differences, many rooms that we're going to walk in are just not going to look like us. They're not going to be catered to us. They're not going to see our needs in a way that other colleagues or peers would be. And so when we're looking at that, we want women to build strong, connected, intentional relationships. We talked about in the last podcast about mentorship and sponsorship. We're going to go back to that a little bit here. It is going to be about aligning yourself with leaders who are allies. And your ally is not defined by the bracelet that he or she wears or the shirt that they have on. It's going to be intentional by action. It's going to be intentional by what they are bringing to the table. Matter of fact, they may seek you out and say, hey, there's an opportunity I saw here that you might want to be involved in. And so we want to make sure that women of color leverage their own lived experience, acknowledge that lived experience, and understand that there are other women who have gone through that or going through that, and they have been able to navigate that situation as well and get connected with that. Now, that seems large. That seems like, okay, she could be in Canada. She may not even be here. That's true. But she may be in your organization and they may be scared to speak up. You're going to have to reach out and get connected and build those strong cross-cultural, what I call relationships with people who are there to support you.
Right. So I think too, when you talk about the kind of reaching across, sometimes folks have a little bit of, trepidation. They don't want to reach across. They think that, the person may not be responsive back to them. So how have you navigated that in the past? Because just being reluctant to do the reach.
Well, you know what? Sometimes we don't know if the stove is hot until we reach out and touch it. Sometimes you just have to go out and do that. And it may not work always in our favor. It may not work always in the way that we want it to work. Let me reframe that. Right. And so it still doesn't make the reach no less beneficial. Then okay, well, that's probably not the person that I can talk to. Let me see if I can navigate myself. Right. Exactly. And so looking at other persons who maybe are just out there, I think if we continue to pull in and let that fear, if you will, take over us, we'll never be able to make it, because it's not always going to just drop in our lap. I'm grateful for the moments that have dropped in my lap. You and I, you dropped in my lap, and I'm grateful for that.
Right.
That is not always common, but even at the same time, for the drop in the lap, you did a reach out. You didn't know if it was going to, I didn't know. We just trusted it. And so I think that when you are hesitant, or when people are hesitant, that's common. That's fine. Don't let that hesitancy stop you from making that progress. That's where it's going to be important.
I love that. So do it afraid. Just reach out.
Just do
anyway. Yeah. And that's what I did. I didn't know if you were going to say yes. Hey, yeah, I'd love to be on the podcast. You were receptive. You were receptive. So, and I'm so grateful for that, because now we're connected.
Yep. Forever and forever. And again, we talked about that in mentorship and sponsorship. I encourage our listeners to go back and listen to that podcast. It is not what you know, it is who you know. And sometimes you just have to trust it in the best way that you can.
Exactly. I love that. So what are some of the common communication pitfalls you think across cultures, and how can we overcome them? Like this communication pitfalls, not even within your organization. And I know your organization is you're in a government facility, and so what does that look like? From a government perspective, with you being in the government facility.
So I think that when you're looking at as big as my organization is, everyone understands, communicates, and interprets information differently. And organizations have to understand that.
Right.
So I'm going to just let's just talk about the communication of body language. Many times everyone has it, but I know that in cultural, women of color are really scrutinized on how they communicate.
Yes.
We talking loud, we clapping, we're using our hands, we're doing all of these things that have been weaponized against us. Right? The resting face.
Right.
Is seen as, oh, she got an attitude, or she mad. And that could just be her resting face.
Right.
And, or I'm talking to you like, hey, you know what? I really think that this is something that we need to do here. And so the clapping of the hand or the using of the hand has been weaponized against us. And it's been seen as, oh, she's aggressive. Where our colleagues or peers are seen as passionate, right? As my resting face is seen as aggression, another colleague or peer, her resting face is seen as deep thought, right? And those things, she's thinking, she's strategizing, but mine's is, oh, she has an aggression to that. How we communicate, how we laugh, hair, I could go on and on. All of these things give communication, and how organizations, the word you used was a pitfall, or how we can manage that, is that organizations have to understand that those things are not what they are.
Exactly.
They're not always seen that way. How can they do that? Organizations, educate yourself. There are hundreds of books on I'm Not Yelling by Elizabeth Libby. That's a major one right there, just about how women talk, women of color communicate. I'm not yelling at you. If I was yelling at you, you would be the first person to know, right? You would know. Ask my kids. This ain't yelling. She's not really yelling at you.
Exactly.
Ask my kids, right? And so they can avoid these pitfalls by bridging real gaps. When we're looking at, oh, we want to communicate better with you. My boss emailed me not too long ago and said, I want to know how to communicate with you. And I was like, I just like really clear and concise information. She did.
Love that. Yeah. I really like
I don't. Yeah, and I'm like, I may not always have something to say in a meeting, but it doesn't mean that I don't care. It doesn't mean that so I was able to give her my truths about how to communicate with me and how I communicate. Everybody is not open to that, and people are scared to ask those questions. So again, to avoid these pitfalls, how to support themselves, understanding what and how people communicate. And just, if you don't know, then ask. And I think that's the way that organizations can do better there.
Yeah, that is good. I love that you say your supervisor reached out and asked that question, because it's important, because everybody communicates differently. And I was thinking about you the other day when I was in the store, because we had a conversation prior to this podcast. And I remember you said something similar to that, how Black women communicate differently. And there was two Black women in the store, and they were there like this, really talking about like how they were going to get this what they were like, they not selling that anymore. I can't believe that. And all I could do was giggle to myself. I was like, because that's what I would be thinking the whole time. But they're actually saying it, verbally saying it, because they're,
Mm-hmm.
so you know what, that, and I understood it. So it
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh my, why would they be saying it? I understood it. It's that's how they were communicating with one another, but that's how we communicate.
Mm-hmm. That's how we
Okay.
communicate.
I
That's
was
just
like,
how we do. We don't even have to know you to be
right,
communicating with you in a way that people are like, do you know her? And you're like, no, I've never met that woman a day in my life. And people are like, well, how do you do? It's just inherited. It's because we
connection.
don't come right.
Right.
It's most times that it happens because we don't come with those same barriers and biases that are afflicted against us in the workplace. That's why it looks the way that it does. Right. That's why you don't have to know, because we're already open, and organizations need to also learn to do the same. That's why that communication looks like that with complete strangers, because we are coming into the room with everybody is, hey y'all, how y'all doing? We're not coming in with those barriers and biases.
Yeah, because that's who we are. I love that. So
That's
bringing that, and then so how can organizations foster a culture of inclusivity and belonging for Black women, with just Black women in general? What do you think? What are some of the things you've done in the past or seen that was effective in your organization, that they including Black women or women of color?
I think that organizations have to stop being performative.
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm.
You have to stop being performative. The only way that you're going to create a culture of inclusion, diversity, belonging, is that you need to make sure that all of your actions are not just performative. You're not just going to host the training on DEI, and then when you walk out the room, everybody's all like, oh, okay, whatever, we got through the training, check. Right.
That's really what happens sometimes, Dr. Daniels. I've seen it.
I've seen it every day. We live it every day. If you work in an organization, there's 448 trainings on DEI, but everybody that is affected by these things are either oppressed, depressed, have anxiety, have medical conditions, can't be promoted. So organizations have to move beyond surface level stuff. You have to really embrace that. And doing that means that you're going to make folk uncomfortable. You got to look at your own biases. You got to look at your own policies and procedures. You got to look at your hiring managers, your hiring practices, promotion practices. It's a whole entire work. It's a whole entire workup. And so that is why, and that is how that they can move past those things. Stop being performative with it. And you see organizations today are saying, oh, we're just going to stop DEI. That means everything that you ever did in it was nothing in the beginning. If you were really, truly involved in DEI, making sure your company was inclusive, you would never be in 2025 going, oh, we're just going to get rid of it. Because you'd be like, no, we need to keep that. Right. We need to keep that. We were able to hire, even from Walmart to the California fires. All of these things of cultural diversity are coming up everywhere. Why? Because we have a problem. That's exactly why. And so if organizations, companies, communities, mayors, whomever, stop looking at this surface level DEI, inclusive, we just saying it, we just got shirts and buttons printed, that we're doing it, and really, really get involved with it and make some changes, then they can really make the changes that people need.
So when I'm going to summarize what you said, it can't be a program, it has to be a culture.
Has to be.
You cannot just say this is a program we put in place, because guess what you can do with a program? Take it away. So if it's a cultural thing and it's happening within your environment, then And another thing, in addition to what you said, Dr. Daniels, there's that psychological safety of understanding that we're able to speak up and say the things we need to say. And I remember we delivered a psychological safety training for one of the organizations that I support. And I remember the facilitator asking, she said, so does anybody have any questions, after she just delivered this beautiful presentation? And crickets, because everybody was still scared to say anything. And I'm like, well, how is that psychologically safe?
Yep.
So I look at that. It's such a broad topic, but to get to the heart and soul of it is you got to get right into the crux of it. And
absolutely, leaders have to lead. Leaders have to lead.
They have to
have to show it from yourself. And if you know that you are not that leader, then you should question what you're doing. But people don't want to go that deep. People do not want to get that deep.
That's what it is. I think that's it. They don't want to go that deep. They don't want to deal with all of that. That's
They
what
don't like
they
that.
don't want to deal with all that, you know.
Yep. Yep.
Oh my goodness. So I think that you know, so what we're gonna shift gears a little bit. So what role do you think that technology is playing in bridging our cultural differences and gaps? How
I
can we
think
foster collaboration with that?
I think that's a good question. When I look at technology, the reason why I try to stay abreast of so many things is because of technology. I think it depends on what technology that you're using, right? So, like LinkedIn and other platforms that are geared towards looking at some tools. There are some great content. I don't even call them content creators on LinkedIn, even though that's what it can be. But there are great leaders that are leading by example or giving platform to these conversations. And I think it's crucial for bringing and bridging these cultural gaps. I think that if in any reason that a person doesn't have these things inside of their organization, then you're going to have to branch outside of it.
Right.
Sometimes the most growth that I have had in my career has had nothing to do with the organization that I work in at all. It's all about the outside, the external, who I've met through other platforms, where it's a conference or it's technology on LinkedIn or Facebook or what other groups or organizations, like, you know, professional organizations like social work organizations or whatever the case may be. That is how I have gotten to the spaces that I'm in, is using technology as an advantage. And so technology can really bridge us, because if your mentor isn't in your organization, he or she could very well be in Canada. How do you get to that person? Exactly. Zoom calls, Teams calls, LinkedIn, joining podcasts, joining webinars, and just really immersing yourself. What I want people to understand, and all your listeners to understand, is that there is someone out there that can help you navigate these difficult arenas. There are places and people invested in that. And sometimes we have to look outside of the box in which we're in order to find that support.
I love that. So reach across, reach across, reach in, reach across.
Yep, absolutely.
So this has been a really great conversation, and I know that the listeners are going to have gleaned some wonderful knowledge from you. And so, Dr. Carmela, I would love for you to share your information again. I know we did that on the last podcast, but we want to make sure that people can connect with you and reach out to you.
So my website is Dr. Carmela Daniels, CARMELA1L, CarmelaDaniels.com. And that's how people can reach me. And they can follow me also on LinkedIn, Dr. Carmela Shackelford Daniels, and, you know, and reach out, you know, through my website or email. That information is located there. And, you know, any way that you want to get connected with someone, if it's not me, find a person, find a peer. If you're on this podcast and you see someone in the comments, reach out, say, hey, I would love to chat. Let's have, you know, virtual coffee. Look at really building what we can do. I think that when we're looking at Black women and navigating our cultural differences and backgrounds in these workforces, you can't navigate it alone. So find someone to help and support you in this journey.
I love that. Now, you always recommending wonderful books. Do you have any books that you'd like to recommend? I know you recommended one earlier, but is there any other one that you think that our next gen or the women that are listening to this podcast could glean from?
Yes, you know, I really think so. I think that, you know, there are some books that are coming out regarding, I know Elizabeth Lieber has another one coming out, and Minda Harts also. So those are authors that I follow both in LinkedIn and on Amazon Books and things of that sort. So I encourage women to look there, and they're always constantly promoting other Black authors or other women of color who are writing books about our lived experiences. And so I really recommend that people check out those two authors and see who they follow. And that's how I figure out what's going on in this world for us.
I love that. That's so good. And thank you again for being on the show today and spreading all kinds of knowledge and expertise sprinkled in with passion. That's what I love about you. So passionate about the topics that we have. And so it's been a real pleasure having you on the show again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I look forward to it again.
Absolutely. And if you've enjoyed your time with us together, then please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with a friend. We want to get the word out. Also, if you'd like to connect with me, you can connect with me through voemetoday@gmail.com, or you can go on our website to look at the services and resources we offer under voicesoфencouragement.com. And until we meet again, I'd like you to remember to be bold, be true, be kind, be you, and a candle loses nothing by lighting another. Be blessed.